Good morning, everybody. How are you? My name is Kaye Giles, and this is God's Morning with Kaye Giles, as if you didn't already know. But if you are new to my morning lives on the drive, that's what I'm going to call it, my morning lives on the drive, I am Kaye Giles, and we are definitely still dealing with toxic relationships. On last week, we dealt with healing and perspective. And it really was a blessing to a lot of you, and I'm so grateful that I was able to deal with the fact of perspective. But what I will say to you, but maybe if I do this, maybe if I stop driving, you have time to just stop for a moment and get this done. We're going to see if this is going to be for the Wi-Fi. Okay, so what I've done now is I've stopped because I'm not in. But I did forget my glasses, so if I squint a little bit, because I've gotten so used to wearing them because I actually need them, that this is one of those mornings that I'm like, where did I sit my glasses? I have no idea. They're not in my bag. But, oh, I know what bag they're in. They're in my white bag, but it's still at home. But anyway, so last week we talked about healing and perspective, and I wanted to let you guys know that, the only winner of, the perspective card was definitely my godson, Darrell Wallace, and now he's going to also get a toxicologist t-shirt because no one else posted to my wall on regards to perspective because, guys, I definitely checked. So there was only one winner, but there could have been so many winners, but it's okay. So now what we want to talk about today is after we deal with healing and perspective on toxic relationships and, what the, outcome is if you don't heal, and what the outcome could be if you don't have the right perspective for your life, and that you'll get tied up in things that don't even let you get to the next phase of your life. And what I was thinking was last night, what I don't tell people is sometimes we like to make our lives look like they're cookie cutter, and they're really, really not. So last night I had a nightmare. I had several, and it was very tumultuous to have nightmares. And it's not the first time that it's happened for me. It is something that happens. It's one of those things where the enemy decides that he wants to try to interrupt my dreams, because when the enemy is looking for a way to devour your life or to come against you, he will find new ways to do it. So if he can't do it with your spouse, he can't do it with your children, he can't do it in your finance, he'll try to find new ways to do it. So now his new thing for me is, let me interrupt her sleep. Let me make sure that she doesn't get any rest, because she does so much within a week. Let's deal with her rest. And what I thought about was, dealing with toxic relationships, it says to yourself, okay, so where does that come in with having nightmares? Well, what I want us to all understand is that when you have perspective on your life, then everything falls into place. So it's how you think, it's how you intake information, and it's how you look at the information. So if you get bad news, let's say they tell you someone has passed away, but you know that they were sick for a very, very long time. What is the perspective that you're going to have on that? The perspective you should have on that is they are no longer suffering anymore, even though you will have heartbreak and you will miss them. And it will feel like sometimes like, oh my God, they're gone. And what am I supposed to do? And how am I supposed to live? But guess what? You're going to live. It's one of those little jokes that my kids do with one another that tickles me. They ask each other, if one doesn't pass one, the other thing, they have a different perspective on it. So it's like say Zechariah wanted Tiffany to give him something and he didn't give it. Or say Tiffany wanted Zechariah, or Chanel wanted Tiffany to do something and it didn't happen, and or vice versa. They normally ask each other the craziest question, but now I get it. It makes kind of sense to me. Did you die? And it may seem kind of harsh because death is very serious, but I want to ask you, if what you're going through has not killed you, what are you waiting for to move forward with your life? I had to ask myself, what are you waiting for to move forward? And then I was writing something for Elder Wanza Leftwich, which is called The Day I Changed My Life, and I was writing it and I got a little nervous. I didn't even tell her that I got a little nervous because I was so transparent in what I was writing that I felt like it was just too much for me to let people know at this time. But even though I am who I am and what I've gone through in my life is my story, that I kind of felt like it was going to be too much for people, that it was going to be too much for them to look at me in the same way and say, oh wow, oh, that's great. I thought they were going to look at it and say, oh, wow, that's like a lot. I would have never shared that. But you know what? I had to get to the place where I didn't care. You know, I have to get to that place where perspective is everything. If you're in this thing to help someone and to help them move on and get to the next phase of their life, you can't worry about what others are going to think or how it's going to affect anybody. It's going to affect somebody in the right way, because what does the Bible say? 1 can chase 1,000 and 2 can put 10,000 into flight. And so what I'm learning is that in this scheme of things right here in this life, that when you're coming out of something that may have been toxic, you have to have the right perspective. You have to have the right mindset and the right framework going on in order for things not to happen to you. So then if I get the right mindset and the right perspective about things that are happening and going on around me, with everything that I'm doing and things not going the way I always want them to go, I have to have a good perspective about it. I can't let it stress me out. I have to just deal with, you know, the number of people that are going to actually be in the class and not worry about the number of people that we prepared for. Just deal with the number of people that are there. And what does this have to do with toxic relationships? I think that if you don't have the right perspective, any and everything that you're going through in your life can become toxic to you. Whether it's, you know, just your daily commute to work. If you don't look at it in the right way, you'll definitely turn into someone you don't even know. And that's a funny thing, because for me, as you guys know, I've started driving more. I've always been driving since I was 16 years old. But after a certain while of being in cars with people and them getting into accidents, not me being the person that caused it, not necessarily always them, but being in a car with someone who was in an accident, I had got to the place where I didn't really want to drive. And so I had to look at the perspective of that. You know, I had to look at the thing of, okay, when that happened to you, that was something that put you in a toxic mindset about driving, that put you into a place in a frame of mind where you just don't want to do it anymore, because people always do that. But then I found out as I've been driving even more, is that I have road rage. I said, I really did not know that I had it that bad. It like turns me into a whole different person. That's not so nice. And so I said, that's not so nice. So I'm going to have to really deal with that and work on it. So that's a toxic behavior. So let's work on that. And then I was looking at the perspective. Perspective has been really, really big on my mind over the last couple of days, you know, because on Thursday, we know that my daughter had surgery, and my perspective on that was, you know, God, you're putting her in a place of hearing you 100%. Totally and fully. You know, you want her to know who you are. You want her to get that love affair back with you one-on-one. That's wholeheartedly, like never before. And then for me as the caregiver, so now I have my oldest child, and then I have my 2 kids, and then, you know, my son is 6 years old, and now he's getting ready to start his new show on today, where he does a show, and I had to have perspective about everything. I said, God, I have to get this all worked out into a way where it is going to be great for them. I had to look at the perspective for my family, but I had to look at it for a good way, in a good way, like everything to be good. Like everything that comes up against you is not a bad thing. You know, you have to look at anything that's not going your way as a test. And the test will definitely be over soon, but you have to go through it. And what will you learn from it? You have to learn something from it in order to get to the next phase in your life. And that's what I had to learn. I had to get the perspective on everything. I had to get the perspective on, you know, wanting new things to happen, or getting rid of old things, or, you know, letting go. You know, a lot of us, you know, when we are going through something, one of the issues that keeps us bound is we don't know how to let go. Letting go is very important. Letting go of things that are no good for you are very important, whether it be sin, whether it be, you know, a bad relationship, whether it be anything. We have to learn how to let things go, and we have to learn how to let God. You know, we heard the song going, let go and let God. That's very important. We have to really learn how to let go and let God. We have to learn how to, when life throws us, changes and things that we don't really like the changes, we have to just flow with them. Because I was quite comfortable when I started doing this, you know, with the time frames that I had and things like that. Now I'm trying to figure out the time dynamic for where I can be settled and set, you know, for everything that has to happen in my life, to where I don't feel like I'm being rushed or I'm being pushed into a place of not being able to get things done. But I have to learn how to do it in excellence. And I'm grateful to God for learning what perspective is. Perspective will take you into a great place. You know, there are people who are pessimists and there are people who are optimists. And the one thing I want you all to be is when you go throughout this day, for one, I want you to be an optimist. I want you to say to yourself, this is the day that the Lord has made and I will rejoice and be glad in it. And make sure that that's how you definitely feel. Be glad in today. Be glad in the fact that you still have life. Be glad in the fact that the enemy, even though he's tried to take you out, he cannot get to you. And that God is giving you the opportunity to cleave closer to him. On Friday, that was one of the things that I made sure was one of my definite things, that I wanted to spend time with God 100%. And I wanted to spend it with him in a way of no interruption, in a way of, you know, that I could just really seek his face. And even though I was doing laundry and I'm even running errands, getting in the face of God, it was so good for me, because I got in his face in a way that I hadn't gotten in there in maybe like a couple days, to where it was just me and him. You know, it wasn't me, him, and somebody else. It wasn't me, him, and, you know, I'm driving. It was me and him, you know. And even though my son was with me, we got perspective on that prayer, you know. And I want you all to understand that the seasons always have to change. And even though you may not understand that the season that you're in, it is not a bad thing that you went through something that was traumatic in your life. It's not a bad thing that things are not going the way you want them to go. Because one thing we all know is all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. So if you love him and you trust him, you have to give him the ability to know, not even give God the ability, give him the room. Yeah. Give him the room to make room for you. I'm trying not to yawn because I wasn't yawning before I started talking to you guys. You know, the enemy is just trying any and everything. And I'm not so tired anymore. What I also want you guys to understand is that we do need to recapture our dream life. Now, that starts tonight, and it starts at 9 p.m. And it's in a private Facebook group. And if you've signed up for the class, I'll see you there. If you have not, you have most definitely had the opportunity to sign up for the next set of classes starting in July. And I just want you to definitely be blessed within your day. I want you to understand who God is and how that he is so able, and get the right perspective on your life. Sit down and do your list for your life. Don't allow toxic situations to make you feel like you're never going to make it. You're saying to yourself, Kay, well, it's easy for you to say that, you know, you're telling us all the time that we can do it, we can do it, we can do it. But sometimes I just don't feel like it. Guess what, guys? Sometimes I don't feel like it. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm going to make it. Sometimes I don't feel like the destiny that God has waiting for me, I'm entitled to it. But guess what? Every time I get a text message or an email, it lets me know that I'm one step closer to giving God everything that he's asked me to give him, that I'm one step closer to doing everything that he asked on a daily basis, regardless of how I feel, regardless of what it makes me want to say, regardless of, you know, how it may not be going my way. But guess what? God is able. And so that's one of those things that I have to definitely think about, and I have to be about, and I have to breathe it out, and I have to have the perspective that all things definitely work together for the good of them that love the Lord. And when I do that, I am definitely realizing that this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. Then it teaches me that once I have the right perspective, that I can love in a way that I've never loved before. Even people that mistreat me, I have the ability nowadays to even just like overlook it. Even when I should be mad. I mean, I have some friends that want me to be really, really mad when people treat me horrible. But then I say to myself, you know what, God, I understand fighting for myself, because not at one point in the time in the Bible did anybody in there not fight for themselves, not fight for what they believed in, not fight for themselves. But I want to do it in a way where I don't hurt anybody. Even if you're trying to hurt me, the Bible says that you're supposed to pray for your enemies. You're supposed to pray for those that spitefully misuse you. And that's what I'm going to do. And sometimes my ways may not seem conventional, but I also understand that I have to get a good perspective. I do have to nip things in the bud, but I also have to remember that they're still a part of God's lifespan. They're still a part of God's, not lifespan, but they're part of God's living creatures that he's put on this earth to be here. You know, and so I just can't get to a place where I just want to dagger them and kill them, because, you know, I know that there's venom that can come out of my mouth, but I'm trying to be very nice and not